Hey guys, today we're going to be talking to Emily. She's a content creator from the USA living here in Spain. Her amazing content is all about her life as an American mom and her Spanish family. And today she's going to tell us about her journey to hit and surpass 100,000 followers in just a year and a half. So tell us a little bit about your sort of journey into becoming a content creator.
I think it really came from a point when I was in my career. It was a low point, I guess you could say, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My 9-to-5 job was really slow at that point, and so I was kind of just spending a lot of time at home, thinking about my life. I also at that same time had just moved to a new country, which was Spain, which is where I'm here, and I was learning how to be a mom abroad. So that's when I kind of started thinking about that if I'm going through a lot of these things, there must be other people that are going through similar situations to my own. And so I just started talking about it. I started kind of making cultural comparisons and things that are like culture shocks for Americans in Spain. And from there, I just kept going.
You saw that it was working and you were enjoying it.
There was response. I was growing slowly, steadily, had some videos that would take off. And that was just kind of the beginning of it. And it's something that I've kept with.
And has it surprised you how it's evolved?
Yes, a lot. I don't think I ever
expected
anything. I kind of expected to start making videos. I'd actually tried to keep it a secret when I first created my account from my friends and family. And I remember the first few weeks when like a family member or a friend would start following me, I would immediately text them and be like, "Oh my gosh, you found me. I'm so embarrassed." So yeah. I guess I probably had a lot of self-doubt and was like, there's a million people in the world that want to do this. They want to create content because at that point, out of being naive, I thought it was easy.
I'm guessing you've learned differently since.
It's not easy. And so I think I just never thought that was going to be me.
You didn't expect it to get to the place you are now?
No. I did not expect to grow as fast as I did and have as much success and then have so many opportunities come from it.
Which is exciting.
It is exciting. It's been fun.
Do you remember the first piece of content you posted?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I think it was an about me or like my story sort of a piece of content. I actually first what I did was find the few creators that were in this space that I've noticed now since I started that so many more have popped up. But at that time I followed Emily in Spain and I saw her video and I was like, that seems like a good place to start. So I created one for myself and that was my first piece of content. And it was essentially just pictures. Like it was a picture slideshow that I look back on now and I'm like, I have grown a lot since this.
If it makes you feel any better, I think my first piece of content had like a square border with the filters on it.
Yeah.
So we've all evolved.
Yeah.
If there's anything you've posted that stands out to you as in like you're really proud of it or it was like a pivotal moment.
So I think the first video that I had that went really viral, and it was on TikTok, so it wasn't on Instagram, was a video where I stitched a girl eating school lunch in the United States, and I compared it to what my kids had for lunch that day. And I think that moment was the first, I think it got in the end something like 4 million views or something like that on TikTok. Yeah, which for being your first viral video, I was shocked. And so that kind of felt like the moment where I was like, okay, I can do this.
There's something here.
Yeah, I can keep going. I just need to keep figuring out what it is that works. I honestly can't remember. Instagram has definitely been more of a slow, you don't go as viral as fast, I would say, on Instagram. You do over time. You can grow fast.
On Instagram, you have over 100,000 followers.
Yeah. I have more on Instagram than I do on TikTok.
But you noticed faster growth on TikTok.
Originally, yeah. And then I started growing faster on Instagram because I had more videos that were going viral on Instagram versus on TikTok. But that particular video stands out because it was the first one of the two that really went viral.
What was the other one?
Of the two of like TikTok and Instagram.
Accounts.
Yeah. The other one I think that I can remember was when I asked my daughter a few questions about what her favorite game was and what her favorite food was. And she said something like jamoncito. And then that, I think, got like 8 million views or something like that.
People identified with her.
Yeah, and they started calling her jamoncito. So
I love that. So a question related kind of to this idea you were just telling me about, the videos that made you realize there's something here. Do you feel like you tapped in pretty quickly to your kind of content? Or did it take some experimenting?
It definitely took experimenting. I think over the last 2 years, I've really narrowed down what works, and I stick to kind of 3 or 4 main types of videos at this point. And when I started, I was doing everything from like educational content around how to have bilingual kids. I'm not an expert, so like what am I doing there? Doing more recipes, which I found, like cooking, I've found is really hard content for me to produce. So I've kind of walked away a little bit from that, and I didn't have as much of a reaction. I did more plans to do in Madrid as well.
Which you don't do much anymore,
I don't do
right?
much anymore because we are extremely busy as a pretty normal family, I would say, here living in Spain. So our weekends aren't always full of plans in the center. We have soccer games and family lunches. And so my content has pivoted more to being more, this is what life looks like in Spain and the reality of what life looks like in Spain. And that works for me. I think people really like to see the schedules that my kids have, what time we eat dinner. They like to see vlogs on what I'm doing in a weekend, even if it is just like going to my suegro's house for lunch.
No, but people love that.
Yeah. So I've definitely pivoted into just being more to myself in that sense, and really what is my life.
It's almost like what people appreciate is the window into your life rather than you trying to advise on their life.
Yeah. And I still do share, I mean, when I go and visit a restaurant, I have a guide that I made that's like a Google Map guide that I always update that has restaurants and things, but I don't necessarily do a lot of reels or content around it outside of a quick story here and there.
Question that I think we've kind of answered a little bit, but I would like to hear if you have more thoughts about it. When did you realize that this could be more than just a fun hobby? And was there like a moment, a piece of content that changed it?
No, because it still for me is a hobby in that sense for now, because content creation is not the most stable of, talking about money, we're being like the monetary side of content creation. You're not always going to have a collab that's going to be giving you every month, X amount of money that you know is going to be there. You might have 1 month where you make double that or triple that, and then the next month you don't make anything.
It's not a paycheck.
It's not a paycheck. So I'm getting close to having that moment. I think I definitely know I could. It's just sort of
it's a big jump.
It's a big step. It's a big step, but it's doable. And I think when I realized that it could be doable was when I started to see how much brands were paying for content and for a reel. And you look at that and you're like, oh,
you weigh up the
with
numbers.
A reel, I can make as much as I do in a month at my 9-to-5 job. So that's when you really start to contemplate, making the switch. And when those numbers start to come in, and I think when those numbers were happening was probably when I hit past the 50, 60,000 follower mark. But it's not all about followers. It's also about your engagement. And so I can have 200, 300, 400,000 followers, but if those followers aren't actually coming or looking to me for advice or suggestions or trust me, they're not going to engage in my content. They're not going to engage in paid content, and then brands don't want to work with you. So it's a juggling act.
Yeah, it's not all numbers, even though it is. Help.
I think numbers is what gets you started. Once you get that ball rolling and you see how it works kind of behind the scenes and working with brands and what they're looking for, oftentimes they might contact you because of the amount of followers that you have, but they're always going to ask for analytics behind your engagement. So they want to know how many people you're reaching in a month. They want to know how many links were clicked. They want to know how many people are engaging with your stories. So it's a lot more than just that one number that's on your profile, which I think a lot of people assume is the key factor.
If you had to go back in time and give yourself advice, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Younger self 2 years ago? To not be so embarrassed, I think.
I feel like
it's a hard
thing to get over.
Yeah. And I've also seen a lot of videos kind of about this, like other people's reels talking about this. And it's essentially like they might laugh at you in the beginning, but once you get there, they're going to be the ones coming to you and being like, how'd you do it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of having the mindset of being like, of putting yourself out there. And I had actually set a New Year's resolution for myself that year that I was going to try and stop caring so much about what other people thought of me. And this was one of the steps that I took to get there.
That's a great New Year's resolution.
Yeah. And it actually has made a huge difference in my life with content and being able to produce content and not be embarrassed about what I'm doing. Because sometimes you feel ridiculous. Like,
do you still like, is this the filming of yourself? Because I haven't gotten over it yet. Like,
in public?
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily gotten over it, although I am better about it. But I still feel uncomfortable.
But you push past it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't do what you do if you didn't.
No, no, definitely not.
And do you think that there were any, like well, I'm giving you two questions at once. The first one, you can decide where you want to start. First one's going to be about like tools you use. And then I was going to relate that to, are there any tools you use that you wish you had known about back when you started?
It doesn't take that much. I think you do need to have a phone with a decent camera and good lighting and the ability to edit. So CapCut.
Is that your app of choice?
That's my app of choice for editing. I can edit a video just on my phone, clicking away in record time. My husband is actually the one who studied audiovisual in university and is like great at editing videos, but he uses like Final Cut Pro and on a computer and with his mouse, and he needs to be and he can't do
Oh, that's interesting.
do the phone thing. He's like, I don't know, I don't get it.
It doesn't work like that.
No, this is not how this works. And I can't do the Final Cut Pro thing. So
was he able to help you with like ideas and visual?
Yeah, so we have always both really loved photos and videos and anything that has to do with kind of creation. I mean, he was really always the one who would like, after we would take a trip, he would make a video of our trip. Or with the kids, you know, he would make all these videos about their first steps or a snow day that we had. And I loved photos. And so between the two of us, I was on kind of my personal Instagram that was just, you know, about my life at that point for my friends, private, was always sharing things,
so they could see what you were doing.
Yeah, and I really, really enjoyed it. And he enjoys taking the pictures. He enjoys editing and filming.
Maybe he counts as one of your tools. Good lighting, CapCut,
and husband.
Photo husband.
Literally, yeah. So I think that was definitely a big factor too in me feeling okay and taking this step to
having like
there's support behind it and someone who enjoys it and isn't like, oh, you're taking more pictures again, although he does sometimes. It's understandable.
So I'm sure you agree, feedback it's hugely important, right? Both from the audience who are responding, as you were saying, if you've got the engagement and so on, but I guess also kind of figuring out what works. Did you have anybody who could help you with feedback when you were starting out?
My husband, but I mean, what's my husband going to say?
It's terrible.
Yeah. And then I won't talk to him for 3 days? No. Yeah, no. I mean, I essentially just sent it out into the internet and posted it out there, see what was going to happen. And
let those responses be your feedback. Yeah. Do you think at that point it would have been useful for you to have some sort of...
Yeah, I definitely think as a creator that's starting, being able to put your content out there and get real, honest feedback on, hey, I think this would work, or maybe you should do that, or maybe you should change this, would have probably increased the quality of the content that I was producing at the beginning. Because I look back on some of my videos and I'm like, what is that lighting? Why do you have so many filters on? Like, what's going on? And it's only 2 years ago. Like, it's not like these are videos from, 2014. This was 2 years ago. So I definitely think then, and I think now, I think it's this slow evolution and you don't realize it until you look back and see your old videos, you compare them to the ones that you're producing now, and you see these huge differences that I've just learned by copying or watching what other creators are doing that's working for them, editing styles or what they're doing in a vlog, or making sure that my lighting, and finally getting a microphone that doesn't sound like every time I talk. So there are definitely little things that I think would have been really useful back then. And I'm sure there are things that would be useful now that I'm just haven't found out yet because I don't get that feedback.
Would you tell us a little bit about who you are, your journey on Instagram?
So my name's Emily. I'm 34 years old, I started Mama in Madrid or Mama in Madrid, depending on who you are and how you're pronouncing it, 2 years ago now. Well, 1.5, I would say, I guess.
Not even 2 years.
Not 2 years. No, almost. It'll be in March. It'll be
2 years.
2 years. Yeah. My husband is Spanish. We moved to Spain together in 2021. We've been here now since then with our kids. And I started creating this content to essentially try to connect with other people that were living a similar experience, whether it was being married to someone from another culture or raising kids in a place that is not their home country, or just being an immigrant in a country, obviously that is not your own, that's a definition of an immigrant. And I wanted to just connect with people, was really the purpose of why. And then it just took off. I grew really quickly in the beginning. I remember I started in March and I made a goal for myself that by the time I turned 33.
And when's your birthday?
September.
Okay.
September 5th, that I was going to have 33,000 followers. And I met that goal. So that was exciting. I manifested that for myself.
Good for you.
Yeah. And then with a few other viral videos, I just continued to grow and grow.
And where are you now?
I'm at a little over 100,000. So I think once I hit that 100,000 mark, I kind of went...
Did it.
Yeah, I felt like for me that was a huge milestone.
It is a huge milestone.
Thank you. I'm not trying to be a celebrity, so I'm not trying to continue this path to super rapid growth celeb status. I feel like I've built a very solid community with the 100,000 followers that I have. And I really enjoyed the engagement. I really enjoy the opportunities that are coming from it at this time. So it's in a really good place, and I'm happy where I am. Even if I'm not growing as fast as I was when I started, it's not something that keeps me up at night because
Which
I don't
it never should be, right?
No, it shouldn't be.
But it can be.
It can be. It can be. But, and mostly because Instagram is like a roller coaster. So you can go through 2-week period of time where you're gaining 400 followers a day. And then you can go through 2 weeks period of time where you're gaining 20 followers a day. And you're like, what am I doing wrong?
And it's not that you're doing anything wrong.
You don't know. Maybe you just haven't created the next video that's going to go viral, that's going to bring you a lot of followers. And it's interesting as a creator to figure out what are the videos, what's the content that really brings the people to your profile. Because I've had a video that has 24 million views.
Wow.
And it brought me 1,000 followers.
That's nothing.
That's nothing. I had another video that I think is at 1 million, and it brought me 15,000 followers.
What do you think is the difference between them?
The one video that has the 24 million is essentially just an anecdote about my children, and that I feel like them growing up in Spain, they can now sleep anywhere. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't have anything that would entice people then to follow along to my page. And then the other video, I start out by saying, this is how Spanish parents get their kids to eat vegetables. And then I talk about soup. Literally, that is more enticing for people to follow my account than the other video.
More relatable, I guess, trying to get your kids to eat vegetables. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the little, I think, tips and things that you learn and you see along the way, but you also never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about monetizing your channel, if you don't mind. Do you remember your first dollar or your first euro earned?
I do. It was a brand that reached out to me to do a collaboration about their luggage service. I remember very clearly receiving that email, being super excited, and then having no idea what to say back. I accepted very little money for that collaboration in comparison to what I'm charging now.
You've grown a lot since then.
I have grown a lot since then. I've also grown in knowledge since then. I've also grown in experience.
If you knew what you know now, would you have charged them more according to what you thought you would be worth at that point?
I don't think I would have, because it was my first time. As your first collaboration, you just kind of have to see what happens. I never created content for a brand, so I didn't necessarily know what to do. I didn't know what to talk about. I didn't know what a CTA was. I didn't know how I should entice people to watch the video. It ended up actually being a pretty good video, if you ask
You're proud of it?
I'm proud of it. I still am proud of it. It's a cute one. But I've definitely now gotten to the point with brands where I know what they're looking for. I know how to follow a content brief and how to crank something out and not have to do a million edits on it then after production with a brand.
You've streamlined your process. No?
Yeah.
So now when you're working with brands, do you generally contact them or are they reaching out to you?
Most of the time they're reaching out to me. I do not work with a manager, but I have in the past. In that case, they did a lot of outreach for me. But for the past 6 months, I have just been on my own, dealing with it on my own. But as I mentioned, I also work a 9 to 5 job. And so I don't have the time to be chasing brands down a lot of times. I barely have time to be responding to the brands that I am in contract with or that I am doing collabs with. So at this point for me, just what I'm receiving inbound
is enough.
So I might start going after brands myself if I was just focusing on content creation. But at this point in time, it's mostly inbound.
And would you, thinking in the future, if you end up doing just this and you decide to do more outreach, have you thought about what kind of brands and what kind of collabs you would be looking to do and offer?
No, I think my particular niche can be complicated to find brands and new brands because I'm not a lifestyle creator from the US living in the US. So I don't have US brands that can send me product.
Because you wouldn't be selling it to Americans. No?
Right. And my audience is actually, my audience is like, I want to say 50% US and then 30% Spanish. And then the rest is sort of just a mix. So it's an interesting combination to find the right brands, which is why I end up doing a lot of language apps or travel. I've done more local businesses as well. The local businesses that I work with, I try to stick to things that I would find useful if I was myself looking for a service, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
And then I've done some tech platforms.
But it's always about things that you would want to be promoted to about, kind of, no?
And I think that is our responsibility as content creators too, because I'm not accepting everything that's coming into my inbox. If that was the case, first of all, I don't want my page to turn into a
Google ads, spam,
an infomercial, like late night television. I want to be thoughtful about how often I'm posting ads. I want to be thoughtful about the ads that I'm posting and that it is something that is relatable to my audience. My audience is interested in travel. My audience is interested about life abroad. My audience is interested in culture. Those things lead a lot of the times to learning languages. I've worked with Renfe. I've worked with tourism boards here in Spain. And those are really amazing collaborations because I get to give back, I feel like, in a sense. A lot of the times those are just exchanges, but I get to give back. I get to show people more about Spain and the culture around Spain. So I think it's really important to be thoughtful as well when you are deciding who you're going to work with.
And it's in the brand's interest that you are thoughtful because if you just accept everything, your words mean nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes back to the engagement. And so if I'm pumping out ads 3 times a week, people are going to be like, okay, I'm sick of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a birthday gift. I think it's like a floating ball.
So the people that gave you that hate you?
No, ourselves. We hate ourselves.
Okay, yeah.
It was at Costco, okay? We couldn't say no.
Big one. Might need a second to think about this one. If you had to give one piece of advice to either like a starting out creator or someone who feels stuck, like they're not growing in the way they want to, what would it be?
For me, it was all about being consistent. So I chose a number and I stuck with it. And that meant that I was putting in a lot of time in terms of creating content and being creative. The benefit for me was at that point in the beginning, I had a lot more ideas. I had a lot of creativity flowing. Now it's harder for me to come up with ideas that I haven't seen 8,000 times on Instagram. But I will just say that consistency is a key. And not all of your reels are going to go viral. You're going to have reels that do really poorly. You're going to have reels that do a little bit better, and you're going to have those that go viral. There is no magic wand to make it happen and make yourself grow. So for me, the biggest thing was sticking with that consistency. And when I did that, that's when I started to see myself grow, whether it was, even if it was slower than I wanted at certain points in time, at other points in time, it was really fast. So sticking with a schedule, planning it out, and just going for it is the advice that I would give to someone who's starting and to someone who might be struggling.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
You're welcome.
It was interesting for me. I'm going to go home and work on my consistency.
Good. Get on it.